Hey, what's up? This is Wilson with Abysmal Hymns, and as promised, I'm returning with Reza to go over the top five songs by Die Kreuzen. Many of you heard the interview I did with the author of the kind of biography on those guys. If not, I'll put it in the link in the description. But yeah, I mean, I think it's we've referenced them in a lot of conversations we've had here, and they're a really unique band that kind of went beyond being a hardcore band into music that was ahead of its time, and probably factored into why they didn't break through like a lot of bands did in the alternative explosion. Um, but yeah, so they're pretty interesting. I like them because they're dark and aggressive and moody, and they didn't just stand in one place. They kept growing as a band and digging into new sounds. So yeah, what are your thoughts on these guys?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I absolutely love them. And you're right. And I think a big component about maybe why they didn't make that leap is, of course, maybe they were a little bit too dark for, people who are listening to, I don't know, the Pixies or something or whoever. Nothing wrong with the Pixies, but they're a bit different. And also maybe even Dan's vocals, which tended to be a very, very abrasive variety. That very harsh shriek. Although he did have moments where he sang, but for the main part, yeah, it was fairly impenetrable. And again, also maybe in a similar way to a lot of bands, like there's a band that I really love called Das Damon or Das Damen, however you want to say it. Maybe they were just a little bit too ahead of their time with respect to what they were doing. And the world was still struggling to catch up. And, they split around the time that Nevermind was hitting and things like that, and that first Pearl Jam album. So yeah, it's just a case of it's not just about having the talent, but it's also about being there at the right time. And sadly for these fellas, they were just a little bit too early, I guess. Would that be right? Early, yeah. So yeah, but I really, really admire what they do, and I've been looking forward to this one, so it should be good.
Right, and I think that, it's one of those cases where on one hand, they didn't want to conform to a certain sound. They didn't want to sound like REM or U2. But on the other hand, they kind of found that in order to keep the band going, there was a certain level of uh, success that they needed to kind of make it make sense,
Yeah.
which is something a lot of bands come to. So,
And what was really
yeah,
interesting reading that book as well that you just mentioned, very good book, which people should check out as soon as possible, was that, of course, they were signed to the brilliant Touch and Go label. And I think there were a couple of majors sort of poking around, sort of interested. But I'm not sure whether, there's a little bit of skepticism, what could really a major label offer a band like this? I mean, they were so unique. Would they have to polish their sound up a bit? I mean, what would happen? So in a way, it kind of worked out better for them that they didn't, sign to, I don't know, Geffen or whoever it was, RCA or A&M or whoever. So yeah, in a weird sort of way, although they didn't become absolutely ginormous, it's probably benefited them because they're so good. So
right, right.
yeah, so cool,
Which
nice
I
one.
think, it's kind of like the bands like Acid Bath would be another
Yeah.
one who, you know, I've talked to the guitar player before and he's told me, when we were a band, nobody really gave a shit about us. And now we're like such a big thing.
Sure.
And that's gotten even like, we had that conversation
Mm,
4 years ago, which was, 2 years before this reunion. So I don't think that they anticipated that type of thing. And now, I think that sooner or later the underground will catch up and we'll see a certain resurgence probably with these guys.
sure.
Cool. All right. Well, how about you kick us off?
All right, man. So, I didn't choose anything from their first EP, Cows and Beer, but I decided to go for a track from their self-titled debut, 1984's Die Kreuzen, obviously. And this was a difficult one because all the tracks are pretty much, I don't want to say they're the same, but the same sort of frenetic pace. But the track that I really feel stands out and would give an indication of what they would do later is a track called All White. And this is a really spooky sounding number, steady build up, very haunting. Maybe post-punk isn't quite the right description, but there is a, a darkness to it. And yeah, I absolutely love it. I think it's probably one of my favorite tracks by them and really capture the essence of what they are, very harsh yet that haunting, creepy quality at the same time. And their music was it was incredibly odd sounding. It's nothing quite like these guys. I've never heard anyone imitate them, or at least effectively. So yeah, that's my first choice. That would be All White from the self-titled debut.
Cool. Yeah, I mean that's a great album. I don't have any songs from it because of kind of what you hinted at. There is a certain uniformity to it,
Yeah, sure.
like a hardcore album. But there are moments like that song where they let a little atmosphere creep in, give it some breathing room, and you can hear where, it influenced hardcore bands to come that did similar things like Bloodlet and Integrity would be
Yeah,
two that kind of pop up in my head at first. Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely have listened to that album. I mean, my favorite album is probably the October File.
yeah,
Although, I've been listening to a lot of Cement lately, so it's hard, those are kind of neck and neck as far as where I'm going to be coming from with it. But yeah, I totally get your point on that one.
cool.
And speaking of the October File, my first pick is coming from that album, and it is going to be the actually the first track from this album,
Hmm.
which they just did a cover of, I guess you can say, on the his new project, which is just called The Crosses, which is actually
Yeah.
what Die Kreuzen means. Um, and it is Man in the Trees.
Yes. Yeah.
And I like this song because the vocals have a lot of purpose. There's almost like a call and response element to how he handles it. In breaking up, like, the screeching with a little more of like a sing-songy hook. Um, and there's a little bit of like groove to it in a weird way. Although when they groove, it tends to be very angular and dissonant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's gonna be my first pick.
Yeah, that's a cracking tune. Yeah, that really opens up the album in quite a fashion. And one thing that was interesting reading that aforementioned book, I keep coming back to that, but was just reading the description of what on earth that album cover is all about. And it's good to know that actually it's just sort of objects that he had sort of I don't know. I think he had sort of taken photos of it, so it's just a series of random objects. But it's funny how it sort of all, it kind of weirdly matches the whole vibe of the album and the songs themselves. So, but that's a killer opener. Really good.
For sure. All right, what do you got?
So, same album for me, October File, because I mean, if anyone's listening to this, I would say it's a good place to start. And I've actually gone for the third track on the album. It's been so long. And what's really funny about Dan's vocals that make them stand out? Sometimes, like, especially when he's singing the title of the song, it almost feels like he's gonna like I don't know his voice is gonna break or something because he really goes for it and is shrieking and there's kind of a slight I dread to use this term actually but sort of hair metal shriek. I'm not don't want to say Vince Neil but it has that kind of when hair metal goes for those sort of weird, shrieky vocals. That's kind of what Dan has here. I mean, I very much doubt these guys were influenced by that stuff, but it did have that vibe to it, and yeah, I mean, I just the repeated refrain of the track's title really sticks in your head quite a bit. So And then the fact is that it's a slower pace from the preceding track, Uncontrolled Passion, which is just I mean, it's a good tune, but it's only a minute long and basically an extension of something that you'd find on the first album. But yeah, it's been so long is my next choice.
Yeah, that is a great song. I will say so the to kind of touch on the hair metal thing that
Yeah.
I would say the connecting factor between them and hair metal would be Aerosmith.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
they were both into Aerosmith and a lot of Aerosmith influenced a ton of hair metal bands, you know.
Yes, the Aerosmith are one of those weird bands that I mean I never quite got into them. I mean I can sort of appreciate the Rocks album and things like that. But yeah, they undoubtedly were a huge influence on that stuff. And in fact, they appeared on what's it called? Decline of Western Civilization, the Metal Years. They actually
Right,
made
right.
because obviously they were an influence, so that's probably why they roped them in. So yeah, that's a good point. And that Aerosmith cover they do, I can't remember which one it is now, but they do a really great job of it. So there you go.
Yeah, and I think that where Aerosmith, I wouldn't really call them metal per se. I mean,
Oh,
they
of
were
course.
really influenced by the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
but they just added a ton of cocaine to that equation. So I think that that's where it meets with like Motley Crue type thing. Even though a band like Motley Crue would take more blatant, and even my first thought when I heard Guns N' Roses were
Mm.
these guys are a lot like Aerosmith.
Yeah, true.
Um, so yeah, so there's that. I think that yeah, and I can see that they were very aware of that
Mm.
kind of scene was going on around them as they were, doing what they were doing. You couldn't ignore that in the 80s. I mean, it was huge. So
Sure.
they obviously knew what was going on, but that I wouldn't say that, that they are really that tied to hair metal aside from Aerosmith. So
Mm.
I am going to stick with this album too, but I'm going to
Yeah.
choose the song Among the Ruins.
Okay.
Which is a little moodier. There is once again one of those like very distinct vocal melodies. It has almost like sometimes it reminds me of Jane's Addiction at
Yeah.
times, the way that the melody is kind of haunting and sits in the background and doesn't stay in the normal rock intervals that you would expect,
Mm.
almost like Perry Farrell's voice always reminded me of like a horn section more than you like if you're writing tablature for it, it felt like that you would be using the intervals of like a trumpet more than you would where a normal like rock vocal would go.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so and I would see that, and eventually they would have horns on their albums. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, how coincidental. Absolutely.
yeah, so maybe
Yeah.
that was kind of, he was trying to do something different as far as how he arranged his vocals. And, maybe it wasn't a conscious thing. It could have been subconscious. He could have been listening to jazz and it just got stuck in his head, and that's how it came out.
Yeah, well, they did have a very diverse range of influences, I suppose. So it wouldn't really surprise me too much. I'm trying to think of the song. You're right. They use trumpets. There's one song I can actually hear it in my
It's
head.
on cement, I think,
Yeah,
or Century Days.
yeah. I think it might be Century Days. I can't remember. It's like a long series of trumpet. Yeah,
Hmm.
I know exactly the one thing you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
they
a sax
incorporate
on
that.
it.
That's it. They incorporate it really well. So yeah, cool. Nice choice. Um, oh, it's me now. So I actually skipped a little bit ahead to Century Days. And God, it's really hard to choose songs and bands you really love. I've actually gone for Elizabeth. And it was really interesting because with this song, it's kind of like not necessarily sonically, but I suppose in a sense, it kind of reminds me of Husker Du and Could You Be the One? Not because they sound any sort of anywhere similar, but in technically it should have been the song that broke them through to the big time. And if reading the book, I'm sure they made a video for this, but I think. And yeah, it's just good, very anthemic. quite moody, quite sort of touched on more personal topics. I don't know if it's about, an ex-girlfriend or what, I've got no idea, but it certainly felt a good deal more personal and emotional. And as I said, those hooks are enormous. It's just a really well put together track on an album that, obviously they were progressing at a steady rate, but even for them, this was quite a departure. This was not like I don't know, a song like In School or something like that. This was like completely different. So that if someone said sellout, I mean, I don't agree with that, but I could sort of understand that perspective. Yeah, so that's my next choice, Elizabeth from Century Days.
Right. I can see that, it's different than their other stuff up to this point. I would say it's more accessible. I wouldn't really say it's a sellout
No,
because
I mean,
it's,
I
yeah.
suppose people would possibly view it if they didn't
Right.
like
I mean,
October File.
if
Then,
they just came in,
yeah,
for the first album,
yes, exactly.
the early fans that just wanted punk music,
Yeah,
how many of them stayed along for the ride is, that's could be interesting. I mean,
exactly. I mean,
there are a lot of bands like that, though. I mean, just
oh
last
yeah,
week we were talking about, Ministry or Killing Joke, all these bands that start at one place,
yeah,
and thankfully they evolve beyond that place. Whether you like where they end
absolutely.
up or not, I respect somebody for changing and growing rather than putting out the same album over and over again,
Because I mean, it like the people who would have been listening to Cows and Beer in the self-titled debut, they might have just been aboard. I'm talking about the purists here. They might have been aboard for parts of Octoberfile. There's a couple of songs on there. It was a bit faster. I think if they heard Elizabeth, they would have died of shock. Because it would have been like, what the hell is this? But you kind of forget what a great soulful vocalist Dan could be and how emotive he was. So I'm all for it. But yeah, I can definitely see why it might have upset some more of the sort of rigid, hardline, sort of hardcore fans.
Sure, sure. I get that. I think that, if you look at the bigger picture and frame the first self-titled album versus Octoberfile versus, Century Days, well, it's a progression that makes sense.
Sure.
It's not like they took any hard right turns. If Octoberfile wasn't in the middle, then it might be a little more jarring of a turn.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, to me, it makes sense.
yeah.
I didn't pick that song, but I like
Yeah.
the song. I don't know that, I remember in reading the book, they were talking about how different it was for them and that it was, I wouldn't say intentional, but, they figured that that's somewhere that they needed to go.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so I get it. And in fact, my song from Century Days, there's only one because I'm kind of splitting it down the middle. It's half Cement, half Octoberfile, would be the song These Days, which is another one that is more melodic, you
Hmm.
know. But I mean, I think that that's pretty consistent for me because even when we're talking about Slayer,
Yeah.
a lot of my picks were the ones that are more melodic or where Tom made a little more effort to sing.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like that's an essential quality to music is to
Yeah.
have that kind of dynamic range. And it makes if you don't have that, then all the heavy stuff doesn't seem as heavy, because there's nothing to
I agree.
contrast it.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
yeah, so even when I like really like the more extreme heavy bands that I like let's say Portrayal of Guilt, they're grindcore some of the time, but then they throw in these dark melodic intervals.
yeah, I mean, even
And
a band like
yeah.
Napalm Death, for example, if you go back to like their second record, they have a song like Evolved as One. Is it called Evolved as One? That opening track from Enslavement to Obliteration, which
Hmm.
sounds like swans. And that's when I thought Napalm Death were at their best, when they were throwing in little sort of uh, what's the word? Little oddities, little left turns like that. That showed there was more to their palette than just, rah, 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 rah. You know what I mean? It
Right.
had a little bit more to them. So yeah, I'm like you. I'm definitely into the more melodic stuff from these. faster, more abrasive acts for sure.
And I think it's more unique to hear somebody like Slayer playing, doing a song like Dead Skin Mask or, Die Kreuzen doing, a song that's more melodic because it's a different perspective on that for them. There's more of a jump that they're taking dynamically than when a band like REM does it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's more impressive. Not that that would have ever happened if REM suddenly pulled off a Slayer song, but
Right, yeah, no.
somehow, well, that would have improved a song like "Everybody Hurts." God, I
Right,
can't.
yeah, sure. If it was in C minor.
Yeah, yes, it would have been interesting, but there you go. Cool.
Cool. All right, what you got?
All right, man. So I'm going to go to 1989's EP, Gone Away. And this was the record that featured the Aerosmith cover, Seasons of Wither. But the song I've gone for is the title track. It's beautiful. I mean, you listen to it, it's absolutely heart-wrenching. You can tell it's obviously, I don't know what their personal situations were. How would you know? But, obviously they've lost somebody dear to them, loved one, yeah, girlfriend, whoever. And it's absolutely mournful. It has a lot of acoustic guitar, and I'm just trying to recall it now. There's nothing heavy about it. It's just a purely emotive ballad, really. And it's kind of like this is how you do ballads. It's not bloody Come As You Are, which is I can't stand that song. This to me is how you can do it really effectively. And again, if people thought Elizabeth was a bit much, you are gonna hate this because this is right off the deep end, an acoustic ballad. Yeah, it's beautiful. So that's my next choice.
All right, cool. I have not heard that one. I'll have to
Oh, you
check it
should.
out. It's so, yeah, I think that I just downloaded a bunch of their discography and that wasn't in it. But I mean,
Yeah,
I know I've heard the Aerosmith cover on YouTube.
sure,
Um, because I hunted that down because I like that Aerosmith song. So,
sure. I think
yeah,
I like it. It's a really beautiful melodic. I'm just trying to think who it just reminds me of. Maybe the Replacements, maybe when they were getting a little bit more ballady. But it definitely had.
some of their ballady stuff reminds me of Soul Asylum at times.
Yeah, that's true. That's an interesting comparison. Yeah, Dave Pirner when he's yeah, exploring those sort of avenues. Except Runaway Train, which I still maintain is like a really bad version of Bon Jovi.
Right. Well, I can go with that. Although I don't hate that album that it's off of.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
it's
as
just
far as
that.
the early 90s alternative kind of rise,
Yeah,
because that was what, 92, 93, I want to say,
correct.
93.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah, yeah, until you mentioned, I hadn't even thought about the Soul Asylum connection. But yeah, you're right. It definitely has elements of that, this song. So yeah,
yeah,
cool.
like somebody to shove or something like that.
Sure. Sure. Or in any of the songs that Dave Pirner penned for Chasing Amy, because he did a couple of songs for that soundtrack. Although it's more his solo stuff, but it has that very mournful, dreamy, quality to it. So yeah, for sure.
Cool, cool. Well, I am gonna skip ahead to the next album for mine, and I guess I'm gonna go with the first song, the opening track from Cement. It's called Wish,
Mhm.
and that's guess I like opening songs. But yeah, for me, it's the vocal melody is more refined. Um, it's 1991 now, so you can hear the production quality stepped up a bit, and he's back to that kind of call and response feel, where he's giving you a dynamic twist to the vocals,
Yeah.
um, which is important in my book because I like to hear everybody's palette of colors that they're using. So, yep, I'm gonna go with that one.
Nice one. Yeah, that's an album that I have listened to it a couple of times, two, three times. But it's really funny. Although I appreciate it, it's not. digesting as much as maybe the previous records. I'm still trying to get more of a grasp of what the record is, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel maybe as punchy as say the preceding two records, but I can see why they went in that direction, and I still appreciate it. But I think I just need a bit more time to fully digest it a little bit more. I don't know if you felt like that initially, or but
Yeah, and I did. In fact, when I bought this one and Century Days on the same day. So at
yeah,
first I was like, well, I don't know about it. But it's grown on me more because I think that they had fully refined everything that they're doing.
yeah,
Um, which might make it their best album. I've listened to the October File the longest, so I was
yeah.
more attached to that because that's how I was introduced to them as more of a hardcore band, where that's not the case at all here.
No.
But it becomes the element of what's the songwriting? Like, you can throw away the genre as long as the songwriting is there. And I
Oh,
think, and it definitely is. It's more. It seems like they took more time with this album.
well, yeah. I mean, it was like I suppose if you exclude all the EPs and everything, it was about what 3 years or something.
Hmm.
So yeah, they obviously were taking their time, and apparently, they would split non. Well, that's not apparent. That's not the apparent part. But they would split not long after this album was released. I think a year or so later, and I think who was it? Butch Vig, who produced it. He said there was no indication that they were gonna like end after this point. Um, Certainly when you listen to this record, it would be interesting, like a what if, where would they have gone from here? Because obviously this was their last record. So yeah, it would have been interesting to see how they would have progressed on from Cement. Would they gone for like deeper into say more of a grunge direction? Would they have done one of those things that bands sometimes do and hark back to the past? Where would they have gone? So it's just one of those great what ifs, isn't it?
Right, right, right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, have you heard that Crosses album?
I haven't got round to it yet. No.
Okay, because there's some moments where you kind of could see that that's where they could go.
Yeah.
His vocals are different.
Okay. Oh, he's older as
Except
well.
yeah, except for the cover of Man in the Trees. His vocals are
Okay.
different and still harsh, but sometimes they're harsh like lower, more like
Not
a
quite
normal hardcore
preach.
band.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to checking it out when
Yeah,
I.
it's worth a listen. If you like these guys, you got to check it out because it feels like it kind of, you know, gives you a look at answering that question of what they could have done from there.
Cool. Nice one. All right, man. So my last choice, it's kind of a bit of a cheat in a way, but I've gone for, well, it's two songs, but it's on the same release. So it's in the, kind of like a, what do you call it, like a split single sort of thing. And it's their covers of Pink Flag and Land of Treason. So I really love both of these because I love both bands. So Pink Flag is obviously Wire, and then you've got Land of Treason, which is the Germs, and it's kind of interesting because I think it kind of showcases both sides of their repertoire. You've got like the obviously the frantic hardcore, which we know about with the Germs, so that's a killer cover. That's really kicks ass. And then the Pink Flag one, which is moodier and kind of it's one of the rare occasions earlier on in Wire's career that they slowed things up a bit because that first album was pretty quick by post-punk standards. So I chose both of them for that reason. I just think it just showed this is how you can do covers really effectively. And if you haven't heard these yet, I definitely recommend you do. If anyone's out there and they're a bit of a sad completist like me, I would add these two to your playlist as well.
Right, yeah, I know that they did that, but I have not
Yeah.
heard them. I would probably listen to the Wire version first. Not
Yeah.
that I dislike the Germs, but I kind of already know I can. play that in my head and know how it's gonna go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's really
yeah,
good because it's almost like, with the Germs cover, it's almost like they were saying, we like our punk, just because we've gone and developed our sound. This is our roots. This is a key influence for us. And they're just kind of like acknowledging it at the same time. And then Wire is obviously, well, because we like to explore music. So yeah, that's how it always felt to me, the choice to cover these two bands.
right. Cool. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Cool.
My last one is going to be once again from the Cement album. I am gonna go with the song Downtime,
Hmm.
which is another one that's like moodier and more melodic. Um, and I think it just kind of shows that the evolution of their sound and how they progressed as a band, which, the whole album does. While I would say that the October File is the best album to check out if you're just getting into them, I would say this one should be the next album to check
Hmm.
out. And then, give Century Days and their earlier work a shot. But yeah, that's where it kind
Yeah,
of stands with me.
I agree. I agree with you. It's really weird. Like today, I just finished reviewing the live Void record that was put out by Outer Battery. I did that for the Shaman, so that's going to be published soon. But it's almost like, don't get me wrong, I love the hardcore tunes on there, and I love Void. But I didn't feel like I sort of just did a very brief overview of those tracks because when it comes to hardcore, it's quite a hard genre to write about, especially because the songs kind of mesh into one another as brilliant as they are. But there's a few songs on there that are kind of a little bit more varied. And it's a bit like that with Die Kreuzen. It's like, the stuff to check out is the more diverse material. And then if you just want, just that raw punch in the face, then definitely go for the first EP and first album. So yeah, I definitely agree with you regarding Cement and Octoberfile. Although I'll probably go Octoberfile and Century Days, but yeah, we're splitting hairs there.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, speaking of punk hardcore bands that had evolved in weird ways,
Yeah.
and what we're reviewing today, I've been reviewing the new Corrosion of Conformity
Oh,
album.
nice. Yep.
And well, it might as well be a Clutch record. But
Right. Okay.
it's like super funky, like ZZ Top sounding.
Yeah.
Uh, which will
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
the stoners that listen to Mastodon happy, I guess. I mean,
Yes. I mean, I love COC. I haven't. I kind of lost a little bit. I lost track of them, if I'm being honest, but certainly not intentional. But it's only so many hours in the day, right?
right, right, right.
One to check out. You recommend it?
I would say if you haven't heard the new Neurosis, listen to that first.
Okay. Oh
The
yeah,
new,
because
yeah,
on
the
board.
new
Okay.
Neurosis is really a great album. I mean, Aaron Turner from ISIS/Sumac is taking the place of Scott Kelly, and yeah, if you like
Cool.
that classic kind of
Nice.
Souls at Zero feel,
Nice. Yeah,
it
I
it
like.
has that.
Yeah. They're probably one of the few post metal, quote unquote, post metal bands I like because I find that genre, if I'm brutally honest, a little bit boring. But I feel that they have that tribal and anarcho vibe to them that I find so appealing. So
Yeah, it's not much on the post side.
yeah, that's
There's a
good.
few kind of middle portions of songs, but for
Yeah,
the most, it's pretty punchy,
good,
more
good.
sludgy.
I love them. Yeah, so I'll definitely be
Yeah, yeah,
investigating.
yeah. You can check it out. It's on Bandcamp.
Sweet.
Well, cool. Well, so there you have it. There we are with Die Kreuzen. I think that we were kind of circling the drain on what to come next. I'll just go ahead and say Susie and the Banshees.
Mm, brilliant.
Um, so yeah, so that'll be my pick. I had some other things in mind, but we'll go ahead and just pull that one out of the hat.
Yeah.
And because I've been listening a lot lately, so I might as well. Christian Death, we'll get to them eventually too, but
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, I mean, predictably, my choices for that, you know what era
right,
I
right.
focus on.
Yeah. I
By
mean,
the boring.
I'll show Valor Khan some love too, but you
I'll
can't
try.
you can't argue with Rose Williams.
I know.
So yeah, so check out Die Kreuzen if you haven't heard him before, just got caught up in some hype. They're worth checking out, and we will see you next week with Susie and the Banshees. So, click the like and subscribe buttons and do all that stuff, and then you can find us on our blogs and those types of places. And I'll have the link to the other episode where we get into the book about these guys. So, thank you for watching. See you soon.